Entering the 1979 basketball season, expectations were very high for the McMinnville Grizzly Boys Varsity Team, who were ranked number 1 in the state. The previous year, they finished in 4th place in the state tournament, which was the highest ranking in school history. Due to the team's depth, size, and talent led by All-American Charlie Sitton, the excitement of a potential state championship season exploded as fans packed the gyms no matter where they played.
You know, it's amazing. I just don't think, if you talk about it, like I tell my kids, you don't want to talk about in the old days. You don't want to talk about it that way. But I just don't think they understand because if they get 1 or 2 games a year that's full, it's like, oh my God, it's full, And they actually have to have pack the gym nights, where it's kind of a big deal, where they do things to entice people to come to the game. Where that year, people were standing out in line before the JV game to get into the game, and it was full every single night. And I just don't think people realize what that was like. I mean, if you weren't there, I've never seen anything like it. It was unbelievable. Every game it was completely packed, and the fans were just great and loud, and yeah, it was really a lot of fun.
It was unbelievable. We had packed houses for all of our home games. I mean, standing room only. I don't know if the fire marshal came in and walked back out or what, but the place was just nook and crannied, packed.
Pack the gyms wasn't the word for it. I mean, they were lined up outside. I lived a block away, so I would get there and I just see the crowds they had to turn people away. It was just the JV games were packed. My brother Scott was playing the JV games and they were packed house, and we could barely get in there and have seats. So it was really exciting.
All the businesses, put up their signs, wishing us luck, and there was always articles in the paper, and there's a huge fan support.
If you're going to get there to watch the varsity play or watch us play, my junior and senior years was you had to get there early because you wouldn't get in if you got there when the game started. And it was really special. It really was fun, and it was a great community feel.
It was truly amazing how a high school basketball team really brought a community together in some respects. Not that the community was disenfranchised or anything like that, but we became kind of the water cooler talk the day after a game. And it was remarkable at halftime of a JV basketball game to see the gymnasium basically 3/4 of the way full. It was incredible.
I mean, I was ready for the season to start. It was a lot of pressure. We had a lot of press. The whole town, was coming out. Everywhere we went, everybody knew us. It was very exciting, and I happened to be a starter that year, so it was really, I got to bring the ball up the court, and it was a lot of fun.
It was a task of head coach Nick Robertson and his staff to keep the Grizzlies focused on bringing a high level of intensity every night, controlling the tempo of the game to force their opposition to play their style and at their speed, as well as block out any distractions and perform to their maximum potential.
As coaches, we really learned a lot about expectations during this time. I know the biggest thing to me was I learned that we needed to play to a certain level every night. And because so much was expected of us, all I wanted was the same level of intensity. It didn't matter if we scored 60 or a couple games we scored 120. You wanted to make sure they played the same level every night. And expectations, pressure. I don't think there was ever a team in the state of Oregon that felt as much pressure as these teams did with Charlie and all the hoopla surrounding, having one of the best players in the country, and a lot of other good players with him. And then the fact that the community responded so well. I mean, those games were sold out at before 6 o'clock every night. This was even after Charlie left, a year after, with those kids remaining. So it created a great atmosphere. And so the expectations were tremendous.
I thought it's really, considering, you bring up the aspect of every other team being ready to play and wanted to beat number 1, and so I think it was a group of kids that were very resilient from the standpoint that they faced that pressure every night of the other team wanting to give their best shot to knock them off. And I think there was other pressures too that group felt.
I don't think anyone went into the season not thinking we had a chance to win the state championship, but state championships are not easy to win.
The Grizzlies had developed into a fast-breaking, defensive-minded team with great chemistry. and it showed on the court as they blew out opponent after opponent. No matter home or away, the story was always the same as the Bears dominated the regular season like never before. They were ranked number 1 in the state for every week of the season, while winning all 23 of their games by an average margin of 31 points. They scored over 100 points in 3 separate games, with some of their biggest margins of victory being 34 3 times, 42 twice, 55 once, and even a 73-point walloping over Forest Grove. Even their slimmest margins of victory of 5 points against Hillsboro and 14 points in 2 different games impressed, while the Bears cruised to a league championship.
It was fun to go play hard, and we that's what I think kept driving us to make us better, even though some of the games we had maybe weren't as close as, the point spreads see. We really did. We played hard, and I think that's what, when the first tip went up, we didn't know if we were going to get to play a quarter or 2 quarters or 3 quarters, depending on what the score might be. So we really went out and tried to play really hard and set the tone from the start of the game.
The biggest thing, I always keep telling people, and I reflect back a little bit about, our second 5, when you talk about, I think we had 10 players or even 11, that could have played on any team. And our second 5 was almost as good as our first 5. I keep telling people that, our second 5 was probably in the top 10 in the state. I mean, that's how good I think we really were. And so whenever one guy was having a bad game, there was always someone else to fill in. It really didn't matter. I think we were a very offensive team, I think. We had, if I was off, Ramirez would come in, and he could score. Same thing, Dave. I mean, everybody, Rick Robertson, he was out for a while and then he came back. Wink, when we look back at him, I mean, he was a sophomore, and then, but he was going to be a great player, and he did very well for his first year as being a sophomore, playing at that level. So we just always had someone that could step in and fill that role.
During the season, we had a lot of blowout wins, and it was great for the people that were, maybe 8 through 12 or 9 through 12, like myself, who got a lot of playing time because we blow people out. I mean, pretty badly. And so it was great for us because we all got to play. Everybody got to play. And we played a lot. And, and I think it really strengthened our camaraderie between each other. And we had a special group of guys that really were intertwined with each other. And so most of us had been like that since we were kids.
How can you argue with how much playing time you get? Well, because everybody's getting a lot, but if you haven't lost, it's not like you can say, I got to come in and do something better, right? Because we weren't losing. But yeah, we spent a lot of time together off the floor as well, so I think that's what really helped with the chemistry.
The starters played like the first and third quarter, and then the other guys played the second and fourth because we beat teams so, handily. So they got a lot of playing time. When it came to the playoffs, it was a little different at the Coliseum.
The Grizzlies were the 31st team in state history to enter the state playoffs undefeated, but only 4 of those teams had gone on to win the championship, causing doubts if McMinnville could ever win a title in the minds of some news reporters. In response, thousands of Grizzly fans packed Memorial Coliseum for the tournament in support of Mac High's first ever top-seeded team. Their first round opponent was a Lake Ridge Pacers squad that used their great height and athleticism to match up well with Mac and race out to a halftime lead. This was the first time all season that the Grizzlies had gone into the locker room trailing at the half. But the Bears would bounce back in the second half and tie the game in the final seconds to secure overtime. It was in the second overtime when Charlie Sitton made what is remembered as one of the tournament's all-time great plays.
Charlie was on the far side of the key, away from the ball, and they reversed it, and the guy had I thought it was a wide open lane. It was going to put the game away. And Charlie came out of nowhere and blocked the shot, and then we get the ball and come back and end up winning it. That's one of the only things I remember that game was I was quickly in my mind, I thought, oh God, it's over now, because who's going to get that shot? And out of nowhere, Charlie came and blocked that shot, and then we ended up winning that game.
McMinnville escaped with a triple overtime win from one of the greatest games in tournament history with 2 free throws in the closing seconds by senior Mitch Romersa.
We were really tired afterwards. I remember winning it, but I just remember after that we went and ate and we're going, we got to play the next day and we got to get ready. And I think that was against Hillsboro or Baker.
In the quarterfinal game, after their drawn-out and hard-fought opening round win, the Baker Bulldogs tried to take advantage of the Bears' tired legs, but the Grizzlies played inspired basketball and came away with a 12-point victory. In McMinnville's first ever semifinal game, some reporters were picking the Grizzlies to be upset by their next opponents, the Metro League champion Hillsboro Spartans. Not to be denied, the Bears race out to an early lead, sharing the ball with their teammates and getting each other easy baskets. They set an all-time tournament record by shooting a blazing hot 67.6% from the field for the game on their way to an 8-point victory. The Grizzlies were looking to make history entering the championship game by becoming the winningest high school basketball team Oregon had ever seen. Standing in their way was a team that the Bears knew very well, the Churchill Lancers, who had taken the Grizzlies to a 4-overtime game in the previous season's tournament, with the Bears barely pulling away with the win. This year looked to be no different as the aggressive defense of the Lancers slowed down the Grizzlies' running game, with both teams seemingly holding the ball for over a minute per possession.
It's probably the most nerve-wracking game to ever be played because, they had two Division I basketball players, a Division I football player, and a Division I baseball player on that team. They had great athletes, but they elected to pull the ball, as you can see from the final score. So they held it, and in response to that, we held it a little bit too. And so, it just came down to some huge plays.
With each basket being extremely crucial, tension grew on the court as well as in the stands. As emotions ran high, it seemed that the game would be decided more on hustle plays and sheer determination than execution. Protecting the ball at all costs became one of the game's biggest keys.
Every possession was key. You just had to take care of the ball. And remember, that's just what we talk about is they're going to slow it down, and we got to just make sure we get the ball inside and see if we can get something. If not, kick it out. That's what we do, and just make sure you don't make turnovers.
It was one of those games when you slow the ball down like that, it's hair-raising. I mean, when you're out there playing, because one mistake you make costs your team. And so that was that was kind of the pressure. Is you almost had to be perfect. You really had to think about what you were doing. Is this the right thing, and so forth.
As every possession was so vital, neither team was able to build any kind of lead as both teams traded baskets. With the game deadlocked at 39 with 16 seconds left in the fourth quarter, the Lancers had the ball, so it was up to the Grizzlies to make the biggest defensive stop of the season. As the game was still tied with 13 seconds left in overtime, the Bears again found themselves on defense, needing another big defensive play. Securing the rebound with 1 second left gave senior Randy Shockey the opportunity to complete their magical season. The tension was at an all-time high as over 10,000 fans held their collective breaths as Shockey almost made a miracle shot to win it all. The second overtime played out just like the first, and when Charlie Sitton was fouled with 5 seconds left, he looked to score the first points for either team since early in the fourth quarter. Sitton stepped to the line with the pressure of a perfect season and weight of his city's hopes of a championship on his shoulders as the team's leader.
When Charlie got fouled, and he came up to me at half court, it almost brings tears. He said, "Jonesy, we're going to win the championship right here. Watch it." And I just go, I knew it right then. He's going to hit those shots.
Charlie calmly sank 2 free throws to score the final points of their undefeated season and claim McMinnville High School's first and only basketball state championship.
Those free throws, I remember I was just getting tired. I just wanted to get it over with. But it was a great moment. It really was, and I think it's something that, we kind of put McMinnville on the map as far as basketball, and kind of the rest is history.
They became only the 5th team in Oregon's history to complete an entire season undefeated, while winning more games than any other team with 27 in the process.
I knew Charlie was going to make them. There was no doubt in my mind. He's such a great player that was going to happen. I knew we were going to win. That was, it's a great feeling. I mean, what more? You just are the best in the state now. You're best, you're state champion. It's, it makes you feel real proud. I mean, you're really proud of the guys that you're playing with in your community.
To me, I hadn't been in McMinnville my whole life, but I thought it was just the greatest community response I'd ever seen. I guess I looked more to state tournament. I can remember driving back home one night after a tournament game, must have been the final night, and seeing for miles headlights, and they were all McMinnville people that had come. The town just turned out amazing, and every night they were there.
The following season, the team would go on to win their first 10 games to bring their winning streak to 39 consecutive games that spanned 3 years, which is still a state record for basketball. Now, 30 years later, this team is still remembered as one of the greatest in any sport that the state has ever seen.
Coming home, I wanted to talk about that. When we came down, of course, all the fans were on the sides of the roads, and we get to the gym, and of course it's packed, and we're walking in there. We're just walking on air. It's the most exciting time. And the next day, we're scheduled to go to we're scheduled to go to every grade school and sign autographs for all the grade school kids. And wow, and then so we did that, and it just everybody in town knew who we were. Wherever we went, everybody knew who we were. I guess it's maybe what the pro athletes feel like.
Yeah, I do remember that, actually. I remember we got on a fire truck and sat up on a fire truck and went through town in a parade, but that was just indicative of the whole town support. I mean, everybody was behind us and supported us, and just made you real proud to be, part of that and part of the town and all that kind of thing.
All my basketball, all my days of sports, it was probably the neatest thing to play in that Memorial Coliseum with all the people from McMinnville traveling up, and the student bodies and the fans and everybody who came to support us. It was really, really a special deal. It was the thing I remember most about it all, looking back. It really was. It was cool.
It's been remarkable to me that the state championship has really stood what I would consider a test of time in terms of it's 30 years gone by, and every so often I still have someone in the community mention, hey, didn't you play on a state championship team?
We had some great talent on that team, but it just wouldn't have been as successful without the coaching staff. I mean, it just went all the way from the youth coaches to the JV coach, Ross Peterson, Rick Hassman, of course, Nick. They're just unbelievable in the way they teach you fundamentals, and they keep you focused, and they teach you the strategy of the game, teach you how to be good people versus good players. I'm a coach today in high school, and I probably wouldn't have been a coach if I didn't have the influence of them. So we would have been a good team, but with the coaches, we were a great team.